Welcome to episode 19 of our board game podcast, A Master's Degree in Rolling Terribly. And this episode serves as our after Gamemania V board games yearly event discussion. I am your host, Eddie, and joining me is a very special guest, a man whose favorite color is red, favorite Pokemon is Pidgey, and who has the distinguished title of two-time world champion at Snakes and Ladders, Gaz. Say hello and salutations, Gaz.
Is there another Gaz on here that's a bio for?
No need to be modest. I've seen your resume.
Hi everyone. I guess that's different types of shade, right? Like I'm gonna throw shade at you by claiming you like a terrible Pokemon.
Who is the best Pokemon?
Oddish.
That's right. I knew you were gonna say that. That's why we went Pidgey, because Pidgey's better. So this,
and it's not red either. It's green. Come on, guys. Like, let's get on this. Seriously.
This week, no Frosthaven. As we mentioned last time, we were heading away for our yearly long weekend, where we have about 9 of us get away, and every year we catch up to play board games at an Airbnb and make a little weekend about it. And we just sit there and just chill as a group for the whole weekend, which was fantastic. And this was Gamemania V, which is awesome that we've actually managed to do this. I keep wanting to say 5 years in a row, but we're up to the 5th one now.
Is it? No, yeah, because we skipped one, but we didn't skip the number, right?
No.
We missed one. So,
yeah.
So technically we've been doing it for 6 years.
Yes.
But we've only done 5 of them. Yeah.
Yes. And a background of Gamemania is that it kind of has altered with the amount of people that have been there. We've had a slight different lineup for friends who have gone. And different player counts, because the very, very original one was 10 people, and the place was smaller. Yeah. So it was a really, really big group that actually went to that. And also, do you remember the whole reason why Gamemania started?
Yeah, because you were like, hey, there's this game called Twilight Imperium that I really want to play, and I feel like if we dedicate a whole weekend to board gaming, we might be able to get the game played.
That's true. And we were so excited to be like, you know what, we can't all catch up at my place because we want to play multiple games. Twilight Imperium is known. None of us have played it. It's known to be this long, sprawling game that's going to take all day. I've read some, and this is 3rd edition, by the way. I've read some things about 10, 12 hours, anywhere in that time. Let's make an event around it and actually get away for the weekend for that. And funnily enough, we've never played Twilight Imperium at a Gamemania.
No, 5 years of Gamemania, and we've played every other giant game. We've played Game of Thrones. We've played like 8-player Cthulhu Wars. We played like that Heroes of Airland and Sea, which I shouldn't have taken 12 hours, but our game group makes things take. So yeah, every Eclipse. Yeah. Like I'm trying to think of all the other. Yeah, but Rising Sun isn't a 10-hour game. That's just our group, right? Like it's a 3-hour game.
Well, you felt like it was.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, it's amazing. We've actually managed to play like 4 or 5 games of TI in the last 12, 18 months. We still can't find a way of actually playing it at the reason we created Gamemania.
No, and we were even talking about bringing it this weekend, and it's kind of like, well, there's 9 of us going, therefore it's going to be awkward. Do we play with 8? But do we really want to play with 8? That sounds, we haven't done that yet.
Disgusting.
Do we really want to do that?
Something that will come up and probably talk a little bit about through this episode is our gaming group. When you take the time stamped on the side of the box, right, regardless of whether we've played it or not, you have to multiply that by 4 at minimum, right? If it says 120 minutes, it's easily going to take us 6 hours, right?
Why is that? Do we have AP?
Just because we're awesome, we're really good at games and we have lots of fun. But then when you add in rules explanations on top of that, that's usually an hour to explain any decent length game. So that doesn't factor into the time you play. So yeah, if we actually picked up a game like TI 8 players, like it'd probably take us 3 days to play.
Yeah.
Right?
I want to sit here and sell it that it's not going to, but it definitely will.
It would, yeah. So,
but anyway, it's been a really good opportunity to play some games that we've never been able to play in the past, and there are things like Captain Sonar. A lot of people haven't been able to do that. We've been able to bust out a really, really cool Captain Sonar game because we've actually had the right amount of people, and we can be as loud as we want because we're not going to disturb anyone, which is really, really cool. We've had some really late. Also, there's a lot of drinking at these things, so we tend to.
For some people,
there's a fair bit of drinking, which means late nights. We're talking like 9 a.m. finishes. Maybe I think this current one that was a 10 a.m. finish, And there are some really just bonding chats that happen.
I'm usually in bed by this point because like about 5, 6 a.m. is my limit because I actually want to get up and do something the next day, even on 3 or 4 hours of sleep. And also once the drunken D&M start happening, that's when I'm just
you
like,
always
cool,
miss the drunken D&Ms.
I don't, on purpose. I'm about to time it really, really well, right? It's like the revolver check. It's time. Should we want to go to revolver? All right, it's time for me to go home. So
there's a board game podcast I listen to called Board Game Barrage. Okay, they've been around for a very long time, and they've got 3 hosts that I really like 2 of them. I'm not going to say which 2, but one of them is his name's Mark, and he's got a game that he always loves in all of his top lists of games, and it's called True Colors. And it was him that I heard this game from, and I was like, he says it's not so much a game, but more of a bonding exercise. It's a way to get to know your friends and sort of cover topics that you wouldn't normally maybe discuss. And I bought it on that decision, and I was like, this is going to come out at some stage. It's actually come out quite a bit at the past Gamemanias. It's that 4 a.m., let's get drunk and ask some really dark, brooding, kind of weird questions. And there have been times where, like, several of us are in tears. And yeah, Gaz, you have not witnessed any of this.
No, I hear about the aftermath of it. I usually, because I go to bed, I'll say one of the first ones to go to bed. I'm still going to bed at like 4 a.m., but go to bed. So I get up the next day at usually like 8 or 9 or whatever, and it's on the table, like it'll be like laid out all over the table, and then I hear the war stories of this game and all the exactly the tears and the emotions. So yeah, it's gotta say, it's not selling it to me, right?
No,
like,
it's a role-playing game without the role-playing.
Without where you are the character, right? Like
Yes.
literally, like So no, so we didn't. Yeah, I usually miss that.
After everyone arrived and we got settled in and picked our rooms and all that kind of stuff, we actually started to get through some of the games, and we're going to have a little chat about some of the games that we actually played, how they felt with our group, things that hits, things that, not so sure about. And because of our number, we had 9 of us there. And Phil, who is our Deathwalker from our Frosthaven group, was there as well. So it was a nice chance for him to bond with some of our mutual friends, which he's never met before. We actually, we'll have a bit of a chat about some of the games that we played. And I think the very first one we did, because not everyone had arrived yet, was one that you actually mentioned in your interview back in, I think it was episode 10, interview with the Gemini. It was actually Scape Goat, which was that social deduction game, which we've played multiple times, but never with 6.
Yeah, and it's weird with 6.
I don't know if I like it at 6.
No, I mean, I don't not like it. I 100% would play it, right? If we were sitting there and we're like, hey, we need to kill an hour or so in between a game. Hey, we've got Scape Goat. Do we want to play it with 6? I wouldn't be like, nah, f it. I'm just going to sit out and just you guys can play. I'm just going to watch, right? Because it wasn't terrible.
No.
But it definitely felt just... For those that haven't played Scape Goat, a couple of the key mechanics to ending the game is you've got to basically take an action that get this little nubbin thing, and then you've got to wait for everyone to have a turn and then take that action again. The problem that we kind of found, what I found, was that with 6 people, it takes a really long time to get back to you, and other people can take that action in between it, and then that means that resets that.
Yeah.
So there was a little catch-up thing for playing with 6 where there's another way you can end it if you think you're the one that everyone's targeting. They're basically the person opposite you in the turn structure you can take that action on that turn, but yeah, I don't know. I just don't think it needed to play to 6.
We only played a couple of rounds of it, but it was enough for me to almost say, because of how hard it is to almost frame the actual scapegoat, whoever it is. In all of the games that we played, that person just got paranoid and left, and there was next to no time to it didn't feel like there was enough time to set up properly and do what it normally does so well.
Well, I find that game hard enough to determine anyway. Like, I'm not great at that. I always kind of figure out either too late or have no idea what's going on. And when there's more people, it's so much harder to get all the cards to everyone that they need. Yeah. And to check, right? Like, so yeah. Anyway, it's it was fun. It was a good way to start because we just kind of started doing stuff.
So yeah, if you want a social deduction game that plays really well with 3 to 5. I haven't tried it at 3, but like 4 to 5 is really, really, really good. It was designed by John Perry and it was published by Indie Boards and Cards. Brilliant game for those numbers. If you want to play a social deduction game that doesn't fully feel like one, and it holds a unique spot there.
That's what I'd say. Like, I'm I don't have this feeling with the social deduction games, but I know there's a lot of people out there that don't quite gel with them because they just either don't like lying or don't like the pressure of having this role where they're like, I know I'm the bad guy and I've got to do bad guy things, right? Like they don't like the active. This game is perfect for that because you don't know that you're the bad guy, right?
Yeah.
Like you assume everything, and so you get a less level of paranoia, but you don't know if it's just the whole, I'm not just because I'm paranoid doesn't mean they're not really after me, right? That whole thing. So yeah, I know it's a perfect game for those. If you're like, I don't like social deduction games, give this one a crack because it has all the elements of it without the stress of it.
Yeah, I feel like that as a mechanic is so well done in this small game and so unique to it. I would love to see it expanded into larger scale betrayal kind of games. I don't know how, but
Yeah.
it's a way like no one wants, well, not no one, sorry. There are some people out there who the minute they see the betrayer card in their hand or the Cylon card or whatever, they go into a little shell and they're like, oh my God, and they stress out and all of that. This eliminates that because you don't know if you're bad or not.
Yep.
And it just keeps everything relatively neutral. So really, really, really cool. The next one I was going to bring up was we played, the group kind of split and you and I actually got to sit down and play a game of Cthulhu Wars. Which I was very excited for. It was a 4-player game of Cthulhu Wars. It's one of the original games that we used to pump out at Gamemania 1 and early days. It's still a big time, one of my favorite games ever. And we still played a very base game on the Earth map with no real expansions other than the High Priest expansion. We had the actual base 4 factions in there. And to sit there and play with 4 people was so refreshing. It was really, really, really nice to throw dice and get my ass absolutely kicked over and over again as Jamie was chasing me around farming me.
Yeah, that was funny.
But nothing brings me like so much joy than to play a game that uses that power track similar to Blood Rage, similar to, I'm trying to think of what else uses it, where you actually have power as a resource and all the different actions cost the power. And everyone's doing one thing at a time. Your turn comes back almost immediately. And it's asymmetric powers, which I love. So you've always got people who are doing game-breaking BS all the time. You've got a whole mechanic in the game where when you lose a fight, or sorry, when you finish a fight, you have to move wounded units to adjacent spots. There's a whole faction that does that. If they're in the game, they decide where every single wounded person goes. And it's games like Cosmic Encounter, it's games like Cthulhu Wars, it's games like even Twilight Imperium to an extent, anything with these asymmetric things that are just seen as, oh my God, I can't believe this person can do that. It just keeps ticking it. And I love it that much. Failed miserably though.
From an asymmetry perspective, it definitely has the everyone is OP, but not so OP that you feel they're OP.
Yeah.
Like everything that anyone does is like, I can't believe you can break that rule. I can't believe you can make me do that, or you can do that to me. But that kind of game, I don't know, it doesn't have that much, that level of feel bad that a lot of those other type of games do when you are attacking somebody or like kind of area control is probably the best name. When you're trying to take people's territory, that can feel really bad in a lot of games. In Cthulhu Wars, it just kind of is like, but this is what we have to do. Kind of same in Blood Rage. That's why I've only played that. I know I've played it at least once, maybe twice. And I felt that game is just like, yeah, totally fight all the time because that's exactly what you're supposed to do. And it doesn't feel bad at all, right? And the way that the ability to make a game like that is brilliant because it just says, this is the fun part of the game and nobody's going to feel bad because it's happening.
It has a really, really good way. There are some games out there, your civilization style games and your very large grand strategy games, even to TI to an extent, right? Where you have your start, everyone starts off with scraps, bunch of stones, whatever, and you start to build up your army, you build up your technology, and you start to really get there. This, you get probably around to start building up before people start throwing punches. And I think that's what I love about it, is it gets you straight in there, straight away fighting, all of a sudden you're on edge, and it doesn't hold back. So you end up finishing the game at a good time, but it doesn't feel like a slog getting there.
Yeah. Yep, definitely. No, and 4 players is a good amount to play with. Like that was a cool casual game to play coming into the evening. With the 4 of us, and it was good. Yeah,
compared to the 8-player versions of it that we've done in the past.
Yeah, and that's it. I think we spoke about that at some stage in the past. That those are fun as an experience. So Cthulhu Wars 8-player. I think the same weekend, stupidly, we also played Game of Thrones, which is another 8-player take all day game. Those kind of games, I feel like I'm okay to play once.
Mm.
Like, go the experience of like, yeah, I played that. I got to experience the mechanics. But Cthulhu Wars is just not a game that I think is fun at that player count.
No, I agree. As someone who loves the game, I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Even with that, you can't even get me to do that. Whereas the majority of our friends, you could say, "Hey, let's play this game," and they would be like, "Yeah, sure, let's go." Until you get 7 people, they'll go, "Yeah, sure," and then you're like, "Ooh, let's play something different." So that's Cthulhu Wars, designed by Sandy Peterson, Peterson Games. I want you to talk to me a little bit about a game that neither of us had heard of before because Phil brought it over. It was called Seas of Havoc. This was a game by Sebastian. I'm going to butcher this. Sebastian Bernier Wong and Peter Gorniak by Rock Manor Games. Okay, and it was a Kickstarter funded game that I had no idea existed. And then Phil brought it along and sold it to us like pirates. Boom.
Yeah, so I think that there was a group of playing this while we were playing Cthulhu Wars.
That's
I believe
right.
that's when it first came out, and so I didn't hear anything about it. I just could hear that Mangy was getting wrecked until he realized a rule that meant that it wasn't that bad. I don't know, but I heard a couple of people that was playing it said it was really cool, and I was like, okay. And then I was like, oh, it's pirates. I'm 100% have to give this a go. And then when we started setting it up, I was like, oh, it's pirates and worker placement. Okay, I'm sold. And then I was like, deck building. I was like, deck building too. Wait, hang on a second. Why was I not always playing this?
Okay.
Yeah, it is. So it was amazing. Pirates, work placement, deck building, yes please, forever. Like that just it was so much fun. It was really, really easy to pick up. There's 2 phases to the game. Basically, one, there's a grid of the ocean where you have your boat and you sail around by playing. It's like a small hand deck builder style. So you draw 4 cards. I think it's 4, and then you just play them, and they have either move on an angle, shoot, stuff like that. So you kind of don't get to do exactly what you do, but you can usually do some stuff, and you basically just got to sail around, pick up treasure, and blow people up, right? That's great. Now, the other phase is worker placement, which is kind of like the shopping round. So there's a whole bunch of, there's islands, and you just put you've got like, I think 3 skiffs that you can place, and that gives you stuff.
Oh, there you workers.
Great. Yeah, there you workers. So
Right.
that's like you get cannonballs so you can shoot. You can get these like steering wheel things so that they help you do maneuvers. Or there's actually like a shop where you buy new cards so you can get better cards to go on your deck, stuff like that. So super, super simple. And like after you've basically seen one round, you're like, okay, I completely know how the game works. The thing that was amazing about this game, and I've kind of talked about this before, is that the game wanted you to do all of the things that are really fun. It enabled you to do all the things that are really fun, which you kind of sail around shooting each other. But it didn't make anyone feel bad for that, because when you get shot, basically that the person, if you shoot someone, you get a couple of points depending on where you shoot them. So if it's like in the side, you get a couple of points. If it's raking, which is kind of like along their ship, then you get more points and stuff like that. But all they get from getting shot is this basically a trash card, which is a -1 point that goes in their discard pile. But it's really easy to get rid of cards.
Okay.
So on your turn, if you draw and you've got these trash cards, you just as a turn you play it and it goes away. So it's not at the end of the game, it doesn't actually impact your score.
Yeah.
But then there's all these other ways you can discard cards, so they're not hard to get rid of. So you can get shot heaps, and you don't go, oh, I've just been taken out of this phase. You're just like, oh, okay, this is going to suck at the end of the game when I have a bunch of negative points, but my current game is fine.
So because everyone is, the main way of getting points is probably through combat and through fighting each other. Someone has to get hit, and on your turn, you're probably hitting someone else. There's no like Care Bear way of earning points kind of, on the sides, and you choose to fight. Everyone's actively fighting. It's built into the game. And yet you do have this kind of destruction derby thing happening in the middle, and then it all gets broken up from a different phase where everyone starts doing worker placement to then plan for the next destruction derby phase.
Yeah, pretty much. And then you come back and you go, oh, that's right. This is what we were doing. We're like smashing into each other because you can ram, and there's little obstacles on the map and stuff like that to blow you around, and there's islands and things. So it just felt so fun. It was quick to have your turn. It was quick to get around. It was quick to get through these phases. And it didn't overstay its welcome, but I felt like you got to do enough stuff, right? Like, it's totally the type of game that I would have loved to just reshuffle and play again.
Yeah, that's big.
And still took us a few hours, like maybe a couple of hours. But when we played it, it was late on Saturday night, so we were all pretty tired. So the laughs were coming pretty thick and fast, which is
Yeah.
probably another thing that made it more fun. But yeah, no, I just had heaps of fun with
Because
it. I love it.
I didn't play this. I was spectating it, and I remember there was another game going on in the other side of the house. This house was huge, and I kept wandering up and down. Because once you were at the other end of the house, you can't even hear the noise coming from the other end. So when you guys were blowing each other up, I was actively watching and seeing it all happen. And then you switched to the worker placement mode, which then I left because it was really
like the
boring
boring
from a
phase, yeah.
spectator point of view. And I'd go check out what the other guys were doing, only to come back to find, oh, you guys are ready to fire again. Oh, yes, they're going for it again. So it was actually quite amusing from a spectator point of view. And I'm not going to go into what our friend Mark was trying to achieve the whole game.
Yeah, so, and look, I think the replayability with it seems quite good in that there are, when you choose your color, which is basically your faction, I won't say faction actually, you choose your color pieces, and that is almost your boat, I'm pretty sure, like your ship, and that has its own couple of abilities that come with it, and then you also choose a captain, and a captain has a couple of cards that go with him as well, so and I think you're supposed to draft them properly if everyone knows what's going on, because there are some synergies between some of the captains and ships. But yeah, again, that just mixes things up. Plus, you've got a deck of shop cards that people can buy. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you could play it every week for months, but it definitely is a game that you could pull out every kind of other gaming session and have some fun with. So
Okay. No, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. So I mean, like, a little rating system that I was thinking up when we were talking about this was rating things out of 6 turtles, because I think turtles are really cool. So I would definitely rate this 6 out of 6 turtles.
Wow, it's a perfect game.
Yeah. It was fun. It was just the perfect amount of fun for what I wanted it to be.
That's perfect. No, I love that. Versailles. Now, this was a game that I had hyped up a little bit because I heavily enjoyed it with my play with Phil and his group. And he brought it along because I really wanted to see it in action here. I didn't get to play it, but I did watch a fair bit of it. This is Versailles 1919 by Jeff Engelstein and GMT. And you got a chance to play this with, I believe, Lee, Phil, and Pega.
Yes, correct.
What were your thoughts around this particular game?
I can see what the game was trying to do, and I think it did it, but I didn't really get into it.
Okay. So this is a kind of World War One, almost like a political, all the world leaders are in a war room kind of trying to divvy up decrees and policies and all that kind of stuff, right? And there's a lot of negotiation in there, and a bunch of cubes and some events that are coming up, and not the crazy amount of randomness, but it's in my playthrough, I heavily enjoyed this, but I wasn't there for a lot of your experience with it, and I was very curious to see kind of how your experience was.
Yeah, and to clarify, I know I just talked about a game that you sail around as a pirate and blow each other up that was heaps of fun, and then a game about trading and negotiation in World War One is not a lot of fun. So let's first of all call out that it's not that it was trading, negotiating, the reason I didn't like it. I actually think I quite like that aspect of games, and I was looking forward to that. I think it just didn't land with me, and there's a couple of reasons. One, it could have been that the board was upside down, and I know that sounds really, really silly, but first time playing it, there's quite a lot of stuff, and all of the cards have stuff written on them, and there's a lot of icons, and it just from where I was sitting, most of what was happening was actually quite far away.
Yep.
And I had to keep reaching over the board to pick cards up to read. And eventually you get sick of doing that. You're just like, I can't be bothered. I just won't read what else is there. So I will just kind of go.
On that note, I've had that experience before when I first learned John Company's second edition. The board was upside down, and I was very much struggling for the first 20, 30 minutes. I was getting very frustrated with myself in my inability to understand, but also the whole map was upside down. So I can sort of see where you're coming from in regards to that, yeah.
So look, again, as a caveat, that could have been something that impacted it. I just felt like there wasn't anywhere near as much negotiation or trading as I thought there would be, because a lot of it was self-interest. I think I also might have gone for the wrong strategy in that I was kind of pushing towards, you get basically the gist of the game points wise is that these cards come out and you've got to get the most influence on them and get them, and then you get the points. They're worth lots. And Phil did say this, so all credit to him. He did say like 75% of your points in the game are going to come from these cards. Then you also draw these other minor objectives, which have all these other things that you're trying to have done. So it's like have X faction this far down the scale, have these countries hating it, collect these icons, and that's worth. Again, in his estimation, roughly about 25%. So I kind of went a lot heavier into those ones, and so maybe that's why. But it wasn't because I didn't win that I didn't have a lot of fun. I just felt the whole backwards and forth I didn't get into.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, I'm not really I'm not sure, and I was kind of reflecting on that because I was looking forward to playing it because you spoke so highly of it, and a little bit in, I was like, okay, cool, I'm getting it. I think I'm getting it. Okay, cool. Yeah.
I get that, and I don't hold it against you or anything like that. It's just you're wrong, but
yeah, that's fine. I get that.
When in my one playthrough of this, Tony at the other group, we both pulled similar cards where we wanted Japan on the happiness scale to be above the sign line to sign it, and the other two had objective cards that wanted it underneath, right? So it kind of turned into this pseudo 2v2. But it was more like a 2v1v1 because the other two guys, as much as they were working together for that one thing, they were, because of those decrees that come out, one was playing France, one's playing America. If there's one that's like America's happy and France is sad, they're both fighting each other over those, which caused a lot of this weird conflict, which was really, really enjoyable. And I think this is where some of that negotiation came in because Tony and I were trying very hard to make sure that both of our needs were met with making sure we didn't screw each other anywhere near as much as the other two guys were screwing each other. And it created this weird dynamic that worked really well and made it very enjoyable. And that's the only thing I can think of. If you had something a little bit different where you had three people who wanted Japan to do terribly and one person not, it may be a slightly different experience or it's kind of where those scoring things kind of come up. Yeah.
So, look, I don't know. I definitely be keen to play it again to see, like either with a similar group or with the other group or whatever. I don't think it was the players that made a difference. So I'm happy to give it another crack, just to see if the mechanics and decisions and the components is just something that I enjoy, because it did feel well done. Like that's the thing. I wasn't getting this idea of like, oh, it's boring or there's nothing to do. Like I could kind of see the decisions. I just don't think that it quite gelled with me. And again, there's heaps of stuff that could be going on because from memory, I believe that was probably at around about 1 o'clock on Saturday. Now, again, we kind of spoke about how we go through these weekends. I went to bed at about 7 a.m. and got up at about 10. So I was running on 3 hours sleep. So you kind of have a bit of energy for the first few hours and then it drops off. So I could have just been in here's a game. It does look like a really boring Euro, right? Like the theme, I love history, but I have a terrible memory. So I don't remember any of it. I just think history's cool. So it could have just, it's a whole bunch of stuff. So definitely keen to give it another crack to see if I like it, and if not. So
yeah, true. Well, I would like to also play it again to see whether or not it's a rose tinted, once-off, really fun experience. But then it's very dependent on the people I'm playing with, or how into it people are, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah. So I think at this stage that's a 3 out of 6 turtles for me.
Okay. I don't do turtles, so I'm not doing it.
You don't have to. That's fine. It's my scale. You're not allowed on my scale.
Okay, fair enough. So we also, and by we, I mean you guys, because I think you were part of this. There's a very, very popular game at the moment made by Days of Wonder that's doing the rounds. I think Days of Wonder, who are known for Ticket to Ride and Shadows over Camelot and a bunch of these big games, they kind of release one major game per year. At least they did. And this year's one was Heat, Pedal to the Metal. By Asger Harding Granerud. Yeah, take that. This, from what I understand, is I didn't play this, you did, I think. This is, from what I understand, a deck building racing game.
Yeah. Yes, that's what it would be called.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and with no shade, I'm thinking about it. I think deck building is in this probably more because there's a deck of cards and less because you're building it.
Right.
Like the deck building, from what I understand, happens at the start and then doesn't really happen anymore through most of the game.
Okay.
Yeah. I understand. I mean, we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, yes, I definitely did play this. And it was enjoyable. Like it. Would I play? I'd play it again.
But it would it become, because like you say, the deck building or the construction bit is at the very beginning and you don't really alter that later on. Does that mean on the second playthrough it'll be a completely different and possibly more fun experience because now you know what to aim for at the very start?
Maybe. So I think we're talking to Phil because Phil was teaching. There's like 5 of us, I think 6 of us playing it. He was teaching us. Now, put in, sorry, there's an asterisk on this as to why this maybe didn't feel as good as it should. We started playing this game at 2 a.m. and we wanted to play a game that was going to go for a couple of hours because a few of us wanted to go to bed around about 4-ish. All right, we finished at about 6:30. So it went for like 2 hours longer than we wanted it to, and that was 45. And that's group based. That was nothing to do with Phil. So, but yeah, from the game, the way I understand it is that you have your car. There's basically spaces along, and you're essentially playing cards out of your hand, which you draw, and that's how many spaces forward you move. And there's all these other bits and pieces that go along with that, which I won't go into. The deck building component is at the start of the race before it's tuning your car. There's basically you draft cards, so there's all these extra cards. Everyone has the same cards in their deck, and then you draft all these cards, and they go in, and they might be faster movement or better handling or something like that, right? Something that is out of the norm. The way I understand it is that you're supposed to play it in like I can't think of the name of what a season, like a Grand Prix season.
Right.
So you're supposed to do a race with those cards, and then you, based on the standings, then you do your next race on a different course, and you draft again
As a separate game or in the same session?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends how long you've got, right? Like it sounds like.
Did you play one session, like one race?
We only played one race.
Okay.
Yes. So, but then remember the ×4 rule. So I think a normal group could probably, knowing how to play it, could probably get through this game in like an hour. So you maybe could play 2, or maybe it'd be a group thing. You might play each week and you draft. So I think the thing is, over time you might slowly craft your deck, but it definitely didn't feel like I was building anything. Like what I started racing with was what I had at the end, with the exception of some of there's some of these stress cards that come in which aren't great.
Okay. Can you book yourself from the start to the point where it's unplayable?
No, not in the draft. No,
Okay.
100% not.
That's good. That's good. That's really good. Then everyone kind of like, does it maintain a nice even? It is a race at the end of the day, right? Does it maintain an even kind of feel to it, or can one person really get ahead and be like, you guys are noobs, right?
Yeah, the catch-up mechanism is interesting. It's basically just move one space for the person who's in last. So I guess that if you're playing with 6 people, the person in last can slightly catch up, but I don't know if that helps the group. So I didn't see anything. If one person just managed to blitz ahead, I don't see anything to allow anyone else to catch up.
Yeah.
But again, that's not the game's fault. Like Look, the only thing I'll say on playing it is that one of the players decided that they weren't going to follow and I won't say rules of the game because they were playing within the rules, but they won't follow the ethos. And essentially you're supposed to play a small amount of cards, not generate heaps of heat so you don't spin out. This player decided to scrap that and just go, I'm going to full throttle basically all the time, okay? And drew all of the negative cards all the time.
Yeah.
So 2 out of 3 turns was getting a garbage hand that couldn't do anything, but still managed to almost win.
What?
Yeah. So I think in the end, Mangy won. I was 1 space behind winning, which actually was quite close. And Will, if he had drawn better on the last round, would have won.
Was he the one that was doing the strat?
Correct.
So this is like Century Spice Road kind of deal where he's only going to try and use the first 2 cards.
Yep, pretty much.
And nearly won that as well.
Yeah, and I don't know. He did have a card specifically that every time he played it, it went back on top of his deck, which definitely helped him be able to move forward consistently. But yeah, anyway, without going into the details of how the game played, so I'd be interested to play many more games to see if that was a once-off and the game doesn't allow that normally. But it did feel bad, and I was talking to Lee about it because we're both like, okay, we're playing this properly, we're going slowly around corners, and we're doing all this stuff, yet he's like two kind of sections ahead of us. This is ridiculous. So yeah, it was a bit weird, and I'd be interested to see. I mean, kind of.
I get that feeling. Like it's playing a game the way it's meant to be designed in a way, and if you could, okay, for example, viticulture gets a lot of reputation because it's literally it's a Stonemaier game about wine vineyards and building up, making wine and selling it and getting visitors to your to your winery to get points, right, through a card system. And there was a whole thing, I think pre-expansion, where people were doing, all they were doing were, they never made any wine. All they were doing was like making people tour, and they were getting money through that, and they were getting money through visitor cards, and they literally played the whole game without doing the whole thing that the game centered around. And it left a lot of bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, where they're like, what's a winemaking game and you're winning from not making wine? What the hell?
Yeah.
You know, and I'm wondering if this is kind of going down that same path, where it kind of like, you're playing a racing game, and it's meant to be played a certain way. It's kind of a weird gray area, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that there are games that you come across this, where you go, well, you don't really need to follow what the game's trying to make you do. You can just go with this other path, and if it's almost as effective, or you have a chance of winning, then it kind of is. It feels bad, because it's like, oh, I'm sitting here trying to solve a puzzle, where you're literally just blamming your way through it, and just going like, I'll just play all my cards, and that kind of go, well, yeah, cool. Maybe it doesn't work as often, but I'm like, there should be a negative to that. So yeah, but look, it was fun. It was fun game to play, and again, I'd play it again, just not at 2 a.m.
Yeah, okay. And technically, you could probably say that about a lot of games.
Yeah, definitely.
So one of the things that I was most excited for, all right, and this goes back a little bit about our Scape Goat kind of thing before, is that many years ago, there was a company called the Pandemonium Institute, and they kickstarted a game that Shut Up and Sit Down, Quins from Shut Up and Sit Down, said was his #1 game of all time. And it was a social deduction game that was going to take Werewolf and inject it with a whole bunch of steroids. And it was called Blood on the Clocktower. And what differentiated this game from so many other games in the same genre was that it had a storyteller who selects the classes or the characters that are going to go into it, so that when everyone draws a character out, this person's basically DMing the game. Not from breaking rules and role-playing and all that kind of stuff, but from almost a setup point of view. And when certain decisions are being made by certain townspeople, this person's whole job is to alter the game in a fair way to make the game come really down to the wire. That's their whole job. So I got this game probably last year. It got fulfilled, and I'd seen a lot of videos on it, and I was super excited. Now, this game, it was designed by Stephen Medway. It plays from 5 people up to 20, as a lot of these games accommodate for big groups. And I didn't get it until last year. Now, I'd gone through it, looked at the game and sorted it all out and was waiting for the day. I wanted a 8-person game, 9 if you include me, because I wanted to run it. As someone who does not like social deduction games, because I get very stressed out during it, the storyteller was going to be the perfect thing for me. I get to be a part of the game without stressing over the social aspect of it, right? And we finally got a chance to play it. We all together, I would almost ballpark it and say we played probably 7 or 8, maybe even 9 games of this thing at different player counts. We played it at 6, 7, and 8. And quickly, what was your turtle thing for Heat?
I didn't. Like 4.
All right. No, that's fair.
4, yeah, probably. I reckon 4 out of 6 turtles.
All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump into this on that. It was just because I was thinking this was easily a 6 Gaz Turtle game for me, because it amazed me. It blew my mind as to how well it went. How did you like it?
Yeah, I agree. For what it's trying to do and how it did it, it's by far the best version of this type of game that I've played.
So
yeah,
we played the first scenario, which is Trouble Brewing, and it's got basically a set amount of characters, on a sheet of paper, and you hand everyone a sheet of paper, and you've got townsfolk, you've got outsiders, you've got a demon, which is your overall bad guy, and then you have minions. And in our player count, we always had 2 bad guys. One was going to be the demon, one was going to be a minion, and then you had everyone else was going to be a mixture of townsfolk and outsiders. And it's good versus evil, and at the end of the game, basically only one team can win. And once my whole job at the very start is deciding which of these characters are going to go into this bag, and I'm planning that whole part of it. You know, this character can get to see, which abilities are in the game or which characters are in the game. This person, if they pick correctly, can see who the demon is. And it's planting the seeds of doubt and trickiness into the bag to create the story. I don't decide who gets the characters. I just choose what goes in. And this was phenomenal because I sat, look at the characters, decide roughly in my head how I want this to play out, and then I hand the bag out and everyone draws 1 token out. I place it in the actual box lid, which actually shows me where everyone is sitting. And then I can start to hatch a plan. You know, if we're going to have a drunk, who's going to be drunk? Whose information is going to be not trustworthy? And it took a couple of games for this to really get off. I would say about 2 or 3 before people started to understand. Because at the start, it was more everyone's sitting in a circle. Everyone's like, well, I'm, not the bad guy. You're the bad guy, blah, blah, blah. It was kind of, people needed to get their feelers out there and get an understanding of kind of what they can communicate and what they can't. And it got to the stage where people were getting up and taking people to the corners of the room and actually having one-on-one discussions or 2-on-1 discussions. And you get one person who's lonely sitting on the couch and it's like, damn, I better go do something. And all of a sudden everyone's getting up. And to watch all this from a spectator's point of view, which is where I was at, was amazing. I'm just sitting there rubbing my fingers together going, yes, that's it. Talk to each other. And I know, obviously, everything. I know who's who. I know exactly what's going on. And my whole job is to keep a straight face. And sometimes that was really, really difficult, especially when I can see the lies because I know how convincing it is.
Yeah.
Brilliant game. There were a couple of key moments at the start which did make me nervous, and that was when we had a Slayer in the game. The Slayer has an ability where once per game during the daytime, they can choose any player and they can use their Slayer ability. And if that person's a demon, the demon's dead, the good team win. And everyone will be discussing something during the daytime, and I haven't even called for nominations. And then someone just goes, hey, Daddy, I want to use my Slayer ability. I shoot Mangy. And I'm just like, immediately I look down at the box and I'm like, well, Mangy's the demon. Well, this is awkward. And I just like, how do I stop this? I can't just sit there and go, it doesn't work. Because there's no, unless he was drunk or poisoned, I can't. And it was just like, can you guys make this last a little longer, please? This is really awkward. How the hell did you come up with that? But then everyone started to get their deception on, their lying on, their deceiving on, and it was brilliant. So I got everything I wanted out of this. I would love to obviously play more. I think we ran into a couple of issues where towards the end, there were some people who were quite exhausted by it because we did play quite a few sessions of it. And it is one where some people just don't, they came to me afterwards and Mark said to me, I don't really like lying. I've decided I maybe don't like social deduction games as much as I thought. And I was like, that's fine. I got what I wanted out of this. There's 4 to 5 key people in here, you included, that I just wanted to see fight. And I got it.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, and that's something that I realized as well. Like, I know that where you sit on social deduction and the lying and the anxiety and stuff like that, like, I didn't ever think about it for other people in the group, but that kind of came out towards the end where I think like Mark and I think Lee also mentioned that he had some work to do as well. So he was kind of doing that. He's like, I'm going to sit this one out and just watch. And then I think he watched the next one as well. Just must have been like, I'm just going to chill. And that's fine. Like that, it didn't break the game. But yeah, like that's what I mean. So my review of this game, and we're not really reviewing, but my kind of recommendation or experience of this game is that yes, it's amazing if this is the game you want to play.
Yeah.
Right. That's the massive caveat. If you don't like social deduction games, if you don't like lying, and if you've got particular personalities in your group, and I think we don't have any of the ones that are toxic, but you definitely could have people in this type of thing that would just be really bad for it. Don't play this game, right? Like, just don't. And you should know that from playing either smaller versions of this stuff, like Secret Hitler is probably one of the most popular versions of that, right? Like, if you've got a group who can't play that, you can't play this. Yeah. Okay, like so yeah. It was fun. Like, I thought it was really good. And I've played One Night Werewolf and I've played the original Werewolf, and they both lack an amount of depth is probably the right word. Like, one night is exactly what it's trying to do. It's just like, hey, everyone wake up, someone's dead. Fight over who's going to be killed. Done, right? It's super quick. The other werewolf just gets into this bad kind of rolling accusations and just murdering people, and it tends to, and when they die, this is one of the key things that I thought was massively different about this. When you die, whether you get killed by the demon or you get killed by the townspeople, like executed by the townspeople, you can still talk. Like, you're still part of every conversation.
You're still in the game, 100%.
Yeah. The only thing that changes is you only get one vote, because everyone can vote on every like nomination for who's getting executed. But once you are a ghost, you only get one vote for the rest of the game. Yeah. So it's a way that early on you can take bad people out of the game if you know they are. So there is a slight consequence to it. But the thing that works well, but it kind of, I don't know, I don't want to go too far into this, but there were some character class roles that want people to die. And I think that's the part that got me, right? Like, I was trying to have this conversation with a couple of people. It's like there was people suggesting every day you just pick someone and execute them because it gives you more data. And yeah, it does. 100% it does, because some abilities tell you what the people sitting next to you are. Some you find out things when people die, etc., etc. But I'm like, yeah, but like we don't need to, and that's going to move us closer to our loss condition, right? And so that's where I got into a bit of a weird holding pattern. And there was
I know what you mean.
Yeah, there was a situation that came up where it was like, well, you were voting not to kill anyone, so you must be the demon, right? Or you were something like that. And it's like, well, no, this is what I've been saying like every game. Let's just not murder someone because, right, for data. Like, I feel like
you have to murder someone for data because yes, it pulls it along, but it creates concrete evidence in a way, provided drunk or poison, right?
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah. So in a similar way to how some people don't like lying, some people don't want to be dishonest, I was like, I feel like this isn't the right move because, again, kind of having that loss condition in your head. So, yeah, but like it was heaps of fun. I enjoyed it. I'd love to play this with like 20 people. I didn't know we went up to 20. I thought it only played up to 15.
Oh.
So, but I would love to play this with... Yeah. I'd love to play it with like 15 to 20 people in a big room.
It's a brilliant convention game. So a lot of people like to take these to the conventions and that kind of thing. It works incredibly well at that. So ultimately, yes, if you think you can get a group to play this, I would highly recommend it. If you want to, I reckon it works best when you have 8 actual players and 1 storyteller, so 9. Anything less than that, it just gets a little bit funky and it just ends kind of fast. But if you can consistently get that, then go for it. Otherwise, you're going to be like me, where it's literally sitting on my shelf waiting for the opportunity, which happened to be this weekend. I don't know when the next opportunity is going to be, but I'd have to go out of my way to plan that.
We talked about that, right? Like, it'd be cool to organize just that being a once-off night, like get everyone around in the afternoon, have some snacks, play this, for a few hours and then be done. Like, that was it. That's the thing. But you're 100% right. It suffers from the Among Us issue where, like, for those that have played Among Us, if you have anything less than a certain amount of players, the game just gets real silly. So I feel like 100% I agree. I wouldn't want to play this consistently with less than 8 players and 1 storyteller.
Yeah. So Blood on the Clock Tower.
6 out of 6 turtles.
Perfect. We love that.
Yeah.
You got a chance to play, now this is a dueling game, Star Wars the Deckbuilding game by Caleb Grace and Fantasy Flight Games.
Yes, I did.
And this is something I bought for your birthday. I think it was that. And didn't get a chance to play it, but you love anything Star Wars and you love recycled art and...
Yeah, that's it. Love recycled art. I actually don't think it is. Oh yeah, no, it is. It's there. Yeah, and I also love deck building games.
That's true.
And I quite like Dominion for as much as I give it. So yeah, like I got to play this. I brought it just in case because I know there's usually mornings that I get up and I'm up before most other people. There's like 2 or 3 of us up. So I thought this will be a good one. I can get it out and play it. I'm sure I can convince someone to play with me. Played with Phil. He said it was very much like...
You had Gemini versus Deathwalker showdown in Star Wars deck building game. Nice.
Yeah. He said it was very much like another game. Is Star Realms a deck building?
Star Realms is a deck builder, yes. It's been around for a while. It's a sci-fi kind of, dueling deck builder.
Yeah, he said this felt much the same. Okay. So he was like, oh yeah, like in Star Realms. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. So, but I mean, look, I did watch learning the game. Like I'd watched a how to play video like a couple of months ago and it didn't seem hard. We sat there and we read through the rules and like 20 minutes at most. Nice. By the time we had set up, learned the rules and were playing. And like, it's pretty straightforward from that perspective. If you've played those type of deck builder games, like, hey, buy a card from a row, put it in your deck, shuffle, play, look for symbols. Like, that's basically the game. What I liked about it, what I really like, other than Star Wars, other than deck building, that's going to get me almost a 10 out of 10 most times anyway. But what I really, really enjoyed about the game is that it felt like you were trying to do something more than just collect points. So my big problem with a game like Dominion is that you are trying to build this engine and then all you're doing with that engine is going like, I'm going to purchase points now. The difference with this was that you were kind of buying cards from this row, but they are split a little bit. So the Empire can only buy Empire cards and neutral cards, but as the Empire, you can destroy Rebel cards that come up, and you can get a bonus from that. So there's something else you can do. You're not like just you are locked into your cards, but you can do something with the cards that come up on the other side.
Yep.
But then the objective is to kill the other person's base. So they have planets, and when you kill it, another planet comes out, and you've got to kill 3 in the basic game. So what it was cool was it felt like you had a decision point, and it also meant it felt a bit quicker. So one of the things in Dominion I find is that you get your engine going, and then you just start going for points. But then those points thin your deck out, which makes the game less fun.
Yeah,
because
okay.
you're getting crappier hands, but you know that it's because you're trying to dig through a deck to finish the game.
Yeah, okay.
This was a bit different, is that you could choose to buy cards or not, and if you wanted to run a really lean deck, and there's a lot of cards that help you thin your deck, which Phil did quite well, then you can make your deck really optimal, and then you're trying to kill the other person. So it kind of allowed you to lean into the things you wanted your deck to do without clogging it with points, which felt cool. And yeah, they just had cool Star Wars moments. Like I drafted or bought Boba Fett from the thing and killed Luke. Like I was like, yeah, this is totally how Star Wars works.
Well, hang
right?
on. You mentioned how cool the Empire's decision making is from removing actual Rebel cards from the deck and also blowing something up. What do the Rebels get to do? Do they get
the same thing.
They can remove the Empire.
Yeah. So
Okay.
the basic thing is you draw, I think it's 5 or 6 cards out in the shop row, essentially. Empire ones you face towards the Empire player, and Rebel ones you face towards the Rebel player. If you're the Empire player, it has a purchase cost, which is credits. If you for the Rebel cards, though, it'll have a kill cost, which is guns. So they're different. You're not buying the Rebel cards to die. You're using a different resource. So you can kind of go heavier that way. And there's other little synergies, like you can get cards that increase troopers, and they all have subtypes and stuff like that. So yeah, it felt fun. It had the right amount of complexity and depth in a game that I want of that type.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to be playing a game like that for 2 hours. It was really close. Like came down to, I think I had Phil's base down to 1 HP, and then he killed me on the next turn. So it was really close, which was cool. We both went about playing very different ways as well, which is another thing that was cool that meant it was close. So yeah, I'd be keen to just play a few more games of that.
What are your guesses regarding long-term support from Blizzard? Oh, I'm sorry, I meant FFG.
I mean, I assume they'll release a couple more expansions and then discontinue it. I'm pretty sure that's what they said, right? They're like, we'll release about 2 more expansions. Probably, I reckon next they'd add the Clone Wars, and then I don't know, maybe they would go for the most of the what's it called? The Luke's trilogy? I don't know. What's the most, whatever it's called. Maybe they do Clone Wars, and then maybe they do the other one.
Yeah.
And then they'd be like totally dead, right? 0 support. So.
And then they'll bring out Star Deck, the war building.
Correct, right? And they'll say we promise we won't do it again. So, yeah, no, it's if you like Star Wars, you like deck building games, you just want a fun little game that you can play. I'd highly recommend you pick it up, and you would you'll have a lot of fun with it.
So it only plays the 2. It's a dueling game, just strictly.
No, well, it's 1v1, right? So that's the dueling part.
Okay.
But apparently, you can also play 2v2.
Oh, right.
So I don't know how that works. I didn't read the rules because we don't play one game. But if it didn't clog it down too much, like if it didn't make the game take ages, I'd be pretty keen to check that out, because it seems, again, like a kind of game that would work really well. Now, if it ain't, I honestly haven't read the rules, so I don't know how it possibly fits in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do quite like a team game from time to time.
We don't have enough of those, so it would be nice to be able to do more of those.
So yeah, but so 5 out of 6 turtles for me.
Yeah. The next one is going to be, it's probably the next main one, the last main one we're going to talk about. It's called Beyond Humanity Colonies. And this was also a Kickstarter game that came out. I'm not too sure when it came out. I know nothing about this game other than Phil opened it one time and he started turning it on and connecting it together like Lego connects or something like that. And everything was lighting up. He's like, oh, we're playing this. And I've just gone, oh my God, this looks amazing, right? Amazing table presence. And this turns into a cooperative or semi-cooperative kind of base building game on a colony, on a planet somewhere. And it utilizes an iPad. and the iPad kind of manages all the resources, or the majority of the resources, as well as the AI who are the people living there, and kind of, what they're happy with when it comes to different decrees and policies and all that kind of stuff. And I have played this before. This was your opportunity to play it because it looks really cool. A lot of people probably don't know that this game exists because it's not. I don't know if it went to retail or anything like that. It was once it came out. I do know that they're releasing a rerun, like another print run for it. But yeah, what would you say your take was on this particular game? Because it looks amazing. It looks brilliant, right? There's just, and it's probably going to link to, you're smiling at me. It's going to link to.
Yeah. So this game was amazing until it wasn't anymore, and then it didn't work. So it's so hard to have a feeling on this.
What was not amazing? Which part caused this? And then you can go into it.
The technology.
Yeah.
So as Daddy mentioned, you basically have an app which tracks the resources. It tracks
population.
There's a whole bunch of internal stuff going on, which part of that also is one of the things that's really cool about it. But again, it kind of gets in the way in some places. The people that live in the colony are managed by the app, and you influence them by taking certain actions. So when you go to put a proposal up, like, hey, I want to give everyone free food, the table isn't deciding whether that goes ahead, which is really cool because it's very different to how a lot of other games work, right? Like TI, hey, I've got this thing. No, nobody wants that. That's terrible. This is the AI, and then you do things to influence the AI, right?
To increase your favor with it, yeah.
Yeah, like doing things that people like makes it like you more, and you occasionally get these little polls that it tells you what you're doing, like how many people like you. So the part that kind of broke for us was that that's all managing that, and you can't manipulate it. Like you can't see the background of it and change values if something's not right.
Yeah.
The thing that it connects to is this, like the colony center, which is the piece you were talking about that looks really cool. So it's this colony thing on the board, and out of it are all these little kind of
modules?
Connector corridors, modules.
Yeah.
That's it, modules. Yeah, you connect them up, and they light up when they're building, and then they go full lit up when they're built, and then they can kind of go like blue when they're upgraded, and red when they're fighting. So there's all these cool lights. Like it has really, really cool presence. I've got some photos, so maybe you can chuck them up on the Instagram, and people can see it if they haven't. But anyway, the point is, at some point we found out that the thing hadn't registered that we built something. And there was no way of going back to fix that, or not that we were aware of anyway. We looked into it. We tried resetting a couple of things, but because there's here is like, the app isn't just an interface. It just is the game. So you can't go, let's just minimize the interface and go into the weeds of it and just change the values so that the game is how it's supposed to be. Like happens in most games, right? Like the thing that got in the way, and it happened again and again, and then eventually we just said, well, we're just done. We can't play anymore because we're so far behind where we should be. Let's just throw it in. Is that you make mistakes playing games. Like anybody who plays a game, especially for the first time with a lot of different rules and bits and pieces, you stuff things up and you're like, oh, no, wait, that's not supposed to work like that. Okay, cool. We'll do it better next time. Or if it's reversible, you take it back and then you fix it.
Yeah.
You can't do that in this.
Yeah.
Like you just can't, because it's all just hidden.
So it sounds incredibly fragile.
Well, I'd love to hear other people's experiences. In my one experience with this, yes, it felt very fragile.
Which is interesting because I played it the one time and we didn't have a single hiccup. Now, Phil did mention that maybe he hasn't updated the app, right? Which I don't know whether that's because essentially you've got a piece of technology and then you've got the pieces and they kind of talk to each other via Bluetooth or whatever. But yeah, we didn't have a single hiccup going through that. And then to see that, you guys were having a couple of problems with it was very disheartening.
Look, some of it is probably operator errors. So, like, for example, the first big thing that we noticed that we couldn't fix was I built this building. Out of all of the pieces, you got to pick the right one and connect it because that tells the game which building has been built. Yeah. Right? We picked the wrong one. It looked very similar.
Okay.
Phil was like, here it is, cool. We put it in and we didn't check the error. There was a whole conversation about why we missed all of the things that told us that we were doing the wrong thing. Okay. But we didn't see it. But then we got to the point where like, okay, how do we fix that? and we couldn't.
Yeah,
We
I don't think
tried,
you
but it
can.
just didn't work.
No.
And so that's completely on us, right? That's got nothing to do with the game, but the way that the game is built means that that can happen,
Yeah.
right? Whereas if you were playing that and there was no RF, no app, no electronics to it, you'd just be like, oh, that's the wrong building, but you'd be treating it the right way. Or if you weren't, you'd be like, let's just switch it out and just change the cards.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right?
I gotcha.
Like if someone had been like, oh, I took the wrong technology upgrade when I did my NTI, you'd be like, okay, we'll just switch it out and it's the one that's valid from now on.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's fine. Just do it. And as long as everyone agrees, you're fine.
Yeah.
You kind of can't do that in this because the app's like, no, I'm in charge.
Yeah, a lot of work went into the interface, I guess, to make it look really cool and look really polished. But like Gloomhaven Secretariat, there are times where we've forgotten something and something should actually be dead or something should actually be alive. And it happened 15, undos ago. But the thing allows us to go back to that point to make those adjustments because it's got a simple undo button that you get 50 undos or something before it kind of goes, okay, you've really messed this up.
But also on that, if you need to, you can just be like, whatever, we're controlling the game. We'll just make the secretary UI do what we want it to do, right? So like, okay, we massively stuffed this up.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on here. Let's just put this monster on and create a new monster.
Yeah, true.
Like
it's
not stopping us.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Okay.
So, the other thing that I felt though, and this is from the game perspective, so the tech aside, was that it seemed like there wasn't that many decisions to make. I felt like most of the turns were gather cards, build module. There are these other things you can do, but they weren't as important as building modules.
From my experience with the game, I agree with you. I think the worker placement part of it and collecting cards, my favorite part of it is literally that bit where everyone's putting forward a decree.
Yeah.
And seeing what the AI does. I mean, you could base a whole game around that, and that would have been fun.
Yes. Yeah, so that's the part that I found, and I know that it changes slightly depending what you build and which characters you pick and which assistants you have, but I don't think it changes that much. So yeah, look, I'm really glad I played it. I wouldn't play it again unless Phil told me that it was definitely going to work properly, right? Or there was some major reason why I would. I love what they're trying to do. Like I really do think that I'd love for this envelope to get pushed a bit, right? Like that the tech app integration with games, because I don't think that ruins games because it's just such a small subsection. But this game kind of needs to exist so that people can try and make a better version of it, right?
Yes.
Like that's how innovation happens. So yeah, really glad I played it, but be keen to see the next iteration of whatever someone's trying to do with it.
So they pretty much make up the bulk of the weekend. We played a lot of those things. I think Blood in the Clocktower definitely probably took most of the time there. In between, there were a couple of mini games that were played. I think you got introduced to a UA Rosenberg classic, which was Bonanza, which I still haven't played. I got to watch all that, which it looks like a lot of fun. It's a bean game.
Like, is this game seriously as old as I believe that it is?
It's really old.
I was talking to some friends about this. If anyone remembers back to my interview episode that talked about how I got into these kind of board games, was playing Settlers of Catan, like kind of when it first came out in Australia. I was talking to those people the other day about it. I'm like, oh, I played this really cool bean game that you farm beans, and they're like, Bonanza. And I'm like, yeah, that's, how'd you know? And they're like, dude, we were playing that game when we were playing Catan. I was like, what? Really? Like, this is like 20 years ago. I'm like, no. This has got to be newer than that. Like, dude,
1997.
Wow. This is like, like I was in like year 8. Like this is when I was getting into Green Day and like discovering music, right? Like. So yeah, I thought it was heaps of fun, like really, really fun. Lots of laughs, it's exactly the game that it sings. I think that was my notable mention for the weekend. Like it's
one of those fillers you don't have to take seriously. It's kind of cockroach poker. It's just kind of like, just have a really, really, really good time.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, it's one of those games that you are scoring, but nobody's really keeping track of it, and at the end it doesn't matter. Like, you score, and you score your cards, but you could very easily count how much and memory. Remember how much money everyone had generated, and you could know who's winning, but nobody did.
No.
And then at the end, you're like, oh, count, 12, 8, 16. Ah, you have it. Cool, good game. That's it.
Yeah.
Like that's the level that you want in a game like that.
And they're
right?
perfect. They're palate cleansers. And the thing is, sometimes those mini games, you can sit there and play them for hours.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. You can have so many laughs if you've got the right group there because there's funny things happening. And like we coined a phrase. Marking it. So mark in Bonanza, for those of you who've probably been playing it for 20 years because it's really old, you get to a shop phase or market phase or whatever it's called, and you got to flip 2 over, and basically then you got to figure out how to get them into your bean farm thing without completely ruining everything that's going on. So you got to try to sell them to other people or hope that you just happen to draw the right 2 cards off the top of the deck. When you consistently top deck that, right? Not just once, but like 3 or 4 turns in a row, it's called marking it. When you literally just go, is exactly what I want. Is that good? Right? So we coined the phrase.
Oh, lovely, lovely. Yeah, well, one day, maybe I'll wait for 10 years so that I can be like, whoa, this game's amazing. Because I didn't actually play that one. You guys are playing that, and then I kind of went to bed. Have a little light down. I went very hard on the Friday night for the 10 a.m. finish. Just drinking and staying up and all that kind of stuff, that it kind of wrecked me for the rest of the weekend. So yeah, look, I'm 38 now. I need to take a little bit of a back seat and just take it easy.
Yep, too much partying.
Yeah. So was there anything else you wanted to talk about when it comes to Gamemania 5, or do we close the chapter?
I think and we've talked about this, and I guess for people who maybe haven't done this or have done things like this, the thing that I found worked really, really well this time was that we got to play a lot more littler games, and that's something that we've been talking about. We didn't have days completely dominated by one game. We had 9 people, which is the most outside of the first one that we have had, and I think it worked really well because we could have 2 games going of 4 to 5 people.
Yep.
And it was really cool. So I'd highly encourage people that have a good group of friends that they'd love to put together, because you got to be together for a while, and that can get along. Give it a crack. Like if you've got the time and space, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And if you're in Melbourne or Sydney or Australia, we can just do a giant 50-person Gamemania one day, right? And
at least we've got to find 20 people for Blood on the Clocktower.
That's true. We can have 2 games of it running at the same time. Have a little competition.
I'm sure if we looked it up, there'd be Blood on the Clocktower groups going,
there are groups.
Right? Like,
there are definitely groups.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah, but then I don't know anyone. Then I get shy.
Yeah, I know. I'm the same. Like 80% of the reason why I play games is to socialize with my friends. So that's why I'm willing to play games like Terraforming Mars.
Yeah, which you love.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for a special episode where, unfortunately, we didn't get to play Frosthaven, but we got to talk about some other games that we got to enjoy over the weekend. We'll be back to our we'll be back to our regular playing and recording schedule as of next week on Monday, when we play with 4 people in Frosthaven again. So we get our brand new Bone Shaper mate to come in here, and we get to.
And if you haven't checked it out yet, have a listen for our interview with our good mate.
Yes, that'll be coming out at the same time.
Yep, so have a listen.
Yeah. So that's going to wrap this up. Thank you again for joining us. I've been Deddy. I've been joined again by Gaz.
And when it comes to rolling terribly, it's all in the wrist.